In January 1973, a senior officer at the Central Intelligence Agency gave an order. Destroy the files. All of them. Every document relating to a program that had run, in various forms, for 2 decades. The officer was Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist by training, the man who had directed the program almost from its beginning. His superior, the outgoing director of Central Intelligence, Richard Helms, signed off on the decision. Between them, they ordered the shredding of what may have been thousands of records. They very nearly succeeded. The program was called MK Ultra, and for a short time, it looked as though it would vanish completely, as if it had never existed at all. What they did not know in that winter of 1973 was that a clerk in the agency's financial section had, years earlier, filed a set of budget records in the wrong place. Roughly 20,000 pages of expense reports, invoices, and memos stored apart from the main archive. They were not caught in the purge. 2 years later, those misfiled pages would surface before the United States Congress, and the country would learn, for the first time, what its own intelligence service had spent 20 years and millions of dollars trying to do. It had been trying to control the human mind. To understand why, you have to go back to the early 1950s. The Second World War was over. A new one, colder and quieter, had begun. American intelligence was gripped by a specific fear. There were reports, some real, some exaggerated, that the Soviet Union, and later China and North Korea, had discovered ways to break a human being's will, to extract confessions, to reprogram loyalties. The word that entered the public imagination was brainwashing. The evidence for it was thin. Several American prisoners of war in Korea had made pro-communist statements on camera, most later recanted. But inside the CIA, the fear took hold and did not let go. If the enemy could control minds, then the United States needed that power too, both to defend against it and to use it. In April 1953, the program was formally authorized. Its name was a code, MK, for the division that ran it, and Ultra, a nod to the most secret intelligence of the previous war. Its mandate was extraordinarily broad. Research into any chemical, biological, or psychological method that might influence human behavior. Truth serums, memory erasure, hypnosis, and above all, the drug that the agency believed might be the key to everything, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. The program was run through a web of front organizations, universities, hospitals, research foundations that appeared entirely legitimate and had no idea whose money they were spending. At its peak, MK Ultra reached into more than 80 institutions, including some of the most respected in America. Most of the scientists involved never knew who they were really working for. The experiments took many forms, and some of them crossed lines that are difficult to describe even now. Volunteers were given LSD, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not. In one category of experiment, the drug was administered to subjects who had no idea they had been dosed, so that researchers could observe a genuine, unprepared reaction. Some of these subjects were CIA employees themselves. One of them was a bacteriologist named Frank Olson. In November 1953, Olson attended a work retreat where, according to later testimony, his drink was secretly spiked with LSD. In the days that followed, he became severely distressed. His colleagues arranged for him to see a doctor in New York. On the night of the 28th of November, Frank Olson fell from a 10th floor window of the Statler Hotel. His death was ruled a suicide. It would be more than 20 years before his family learned that he had been dosed at all. The circumstances of his death remain disputed to this day. Elsewhere, the program funded work that had nothing to do with volunteers. In Montreal, at a respected psychiatric institute, a doctor named Ewan Cameron was conducting experiments on his own patients, people who had come to him for depression and anxiety. With CIA funding, Cameron subjected them to what he called depatterning, weeks of drug-induced sleep, repeated electroshock, and recorded messages played on a loop for days at a time. The goal was to erase a personality and build a new one in its place. The patients had not consented to any of this. Many never recovered. There is a persistent question that surrounds MK-Ultra, and it deserves an honest answer. Did it work? The short version is no. After 20 years and enormous expense, the program produced no reliable method of controlling a human mind. LSD proved too unpredictable to be a truth serum. Hypnosis could not manufacture obedient agents. Cameron's depatterning destroyed personalities but could not construct new ones. The Manchurian Candidate, the programmed, unwitting assassin of popular imagination, was never built because it could not be built. What the program did produce was damage, ruined patients, at least one death directly connected to it, and a vast archive of human experimentation carried out, in most cases without consent. By the late 1960s, the enthusiasm had faded. The drug research wound down. And in 1973, as the Watergate scandal began to expose the darker corners of American government, Richard Helms and Sidney Gottlieb decided the files were a liability. They ordered them destroyed. But the misfiled financial records survived. In 1974, the journalist Seymour Hersh published a report on illegal CIA activity. The following year, 2 investigations opened: the Church Committee in the Senate and the Rockefeller Commission appointed by the President. Slowly, the surviving fragments of MK-Ultra were pulled into the light. In 1977, under a Freedom of Information Act request, those 20,000 surviving pages were released. They did not tell the whole story. The whole story had been shredded 4 years earlier, but they told enough to confirm the front organizations, the universities, the hospitals, the unwitting subjects. Enough to establish that the program had been real, sustained, and approved at the highest levels. Sidney Gottlieb testified before Congress under a grant of immunity. He said that he had come to believe the entire program had been a mistake. He retired to a farm, raised goats, and gave almost no interviews for the rest of his life. He died in 1994. Richard Helms, who had ordered the destruction of the files, was never prosecuted for it. He served as an ambassador. He died honored. Ewan Cameron, the doctor in Montreal, died in 1967, before any of it became public. He was, at the time of his death, one of the most respected psychiatrists in North America. He had served as president of the American, Canadian, and World Psychiatric Associations. His patients spent decades seeking acknowledgement. Some received small settlements. Most received nothing. In 1977, the CIA director admitted that the surviving records were incomplete and that the full scope of MK-Ultra would never be known. The men who could have explained it were gone, or silent, or protected. The documents that remain sit today in the American National Archives. 20,000 pages, misfiled by accident, saved by an error in a filing system. Everything else, the experiments never recorded there, the subjects never named, was reduced to ash in the winter of 1973. It is one of the few atrocities in modern history where the cover-up very nearly worked. It failed for a single reason. Someone, decades earlier, had put the paperwork in the wrong drawer.